Okay, hello everyone, good evening, welcome back to Sporty Spotlight, your favourite spot. So, Daniel's got the night off tonight because he's busy watching the darts with his folks. And tonight I've got a very, very special guest. Norwich City fan, as you can tell. Absolutely
Yes.
brilliant. What a shirt, by the way.
Thank you so much, Max Aarons. This is Max Aarons from
Hey, hello.
2020-21.
So yeah, please give a big hello to my good friend, all the way from Pittsburgh, Mr. Brendan Boone. How are you doing tonight, fella?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Renolf. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very proud to be supporting Norwich City. I've loved it so much, and it's been long stuff from ups and downs and everything. So yeah, I love this football club so much. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Can I ask, is that match worn?
No, this is actually I bought this in 2020 off the Norwich City website.
Ah.
So
Yeah. Well, it does have.
yes.
It looks authentic with the shoulder badges or anything. So
Yeah, yeah.
before we get into the club stuff, I just want to ask. So how did you, of course, um, it's talked about a lot, and of course it is changing now. But of course, over in America, it's mainly dominated by baseball, American football, and
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
So can I ask, like, how was that sort of how was it sort of getting into football at initially?
Okay, so I got into soccer as we call it over here in America, but obviously I call it football. I call it both ways. But you know, as I started getting into soccer when I was around the age of 5, my dad was really big into football. My dad's a big Tottenham Hotspur fan, and I started playing soccer around the age of 5. Started playing like some indoor and stuff like that, and then just kind of started getting into outdoor soccer at the early ages and stuff like that. My dad was coaching me. I was playing some church soccer or football, as you guys would say, over at churches. And then I played 1 year of club soccer when I was around 11 or 12, kind of 11 and 12 ages. And then when high school came around, I didn't end up playing in high school. I just played a bunch of indoor soccer. For me, I love indoor a lot better, actually. Indoor is just such better form because you like to play it off the wall and everything like that. So I really enjoy indoor quite a bit. Um, but yeah, I enjoy playing soccer all the time. I play it 2 times a week now, and it's just a great way to play with friends and family, and talk about the game of football is absolutely amazing, and a lot of things happen with the beautiful game. So just growing up playing it, playing with my dad, my friends, all my family. My dad coached me playing up in church, and also a couple years in club as well. But yeah, football is a big part of my life, I would say, over here as well.
What is your favourite position? Can I ask?
My favorite position, I would like to play left back. I love
Yeah.
playing. I love playing the back. I love clearing the ball. I love kicking free kicks and stuff. I did that quite a lot when I was a child, scoring free kicks as well. So that's
Bend it
pretty
like
fun.
Boone.
Yeah, yeah, and it like Boone. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm guessing that your dad's very happy at the moment. Of course, it's the first thing that Spurs have really had to shout about over the last 20 years.
Yes, yeah, it has been a really rough season for them. My dad would be following them in the Premier League, and then be watching them in the Europa League. It's like, oh yeah, Tottenham won the Europa League, but he's just been kind of saying like, well, the season wasn't really good, because 17th place in the Premier League, and Ange Postecoglou and everything. It's just they've got Tottenham Hotspur. They have their issues too. Like they've got to make a lot of decisions as well. Because 17th in the Prem, that's unheard of, and you still make Champions League football after winning the Europa League. So
Oh my
you
god.
know they've got their stuff. But yeah, my dad's a big Spurs fan as well, so he loves Tottenham.
Yeah, and to think that in the past there were teams getting relegated with more points than what Spurs amassed this
Yes,
season.
exactly. Because they finished with 38 points, and it's like if we go back 10 years in the Prem, that's relegation. That's like 19th place.
Yeah, exactly.
But now it's like the 3 teams that get promoted automatically come straight back down. Obviously.
Yeah. And
So
so I wanted to ask which I've I do watch, I do look at your Instagram stories as well. Yeah, Pittsburgh, the Pirates. Now I don't watch a lot of baseball, but I love it if you could tell me a bit about that. Of course, I don't know a huge amount about American sports. I've got my friend, he's a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, nice, nice. And actually, real quickly, so just to go back to your point earlier. Okay, so I'm actually from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm living there right now, but I have a bunch of family that both of my grandparents are actually from Pittsburgh, and my dad was born in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia, and my uncle was born in Lima. So they're also like born out of Philadelphia, but basically Pittsburgh basically runs in like our family. So, my dad raised me with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's all like throughout family. But like, yeah, I'm here in St. Louis, but I'm all Pittsburgh culture. But going back to what you said, the Pirates, I absolutely love the Pirates, man. My dad and I, we try to go to PNC Park like, quite a bit, and we try to go up there like at least once a year as well. But I know that baseball is really really popular here in America, and we love America's pastime. And watching the Pirates, there's been a lot of ups and downs as well, with the Pirates, because obviously they're not the best right now, but they've got some really good players that we just love watching. And it can be a little bit of ups and downs, but we love the Pirates. And baseball here is, I've got a lot of friends here in St. Louis that do love baseball. They love the St. Louis Cardinals, and we love just talking to each other about it. It's just it's a big thing here, in my household. And growing up with the Pirates with my dad, and being fans together, it's the best feeling.
Yeah.
So it is the best feeling.
Yeah. Ups and downs, that is life indeed.
Of course,
yeah.
yes.
So going back onto football, saying I remember you saying to me on the group chat that it was the 6 big teams that were mainly supported in the USA. Of course, Spurs being a dad.
For sure.
Also Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal. Who else? Wait, nah. Wait.
Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and then Man City and Tottenham. Those are the main 6 that we saw. Typically.
You what, just if you know any Man United fans who are actually pretty good at football, then just email them saying I know someone who could play for you. But yeah.
Yes, we'll do, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, talking about going on to that. So 6 big teams. So then, where did a certain yo-yo club from Norfolk come from? Come into your life?
Okay. All right. So this is kind of okay. So I get asked this a lot, and I love telling people this story because it is just kind of a funny story. So it all goes back to, I would say, this all goes back to probably around 2010. So I'm just gonna kind of go a little bit earlier, like my early childhood, and then I'll just kind of go, because like following Norwich, like to where I began, it's absolutely insane. So in 2010, I started following Manchester United. Of course, who didn't start following Manchester United? Wayne Rooney, Nemanja Vidic, Ryan Giggs, all those guys. So growing up on a Saturday morning watching Fox Soccer Channel, Manchester United was always on. Dimitar Berbatov. And of course, this team was scoring goals and winning football matches, all that stuff. So I started following Man United for around 3 years or so. Then I started going on the Liverpool bandwagon, okay? Then I started watching like Steven Gerrard, Maxi Rodriguez, Lucas Leiva, and, all those guys. So then Liverpool, kind of started following Liverpool. Then Liverpool kind of stayed for around like Liverpool was like around maybe 3 or 4 years or so, I'd say. But also, when Cardiff City came to the Premier League in 2013, 2014, the same year that Norwich got relegated, so I did follow Cardiff City a little bit. I kind of was following them a little bit in the Premier League. So I was following Cardiff and Liverpool that same year. Because like Cardiff City, I really loved their crest because they were like the Red Dragons back then. And, they had a player named Matthew Connolly who played on right back. I really enjoyed watching him as well. And then they had Fabio, I believe, who also played for Cardiff as well. And they also beat Man City that year. I remember that in August. So kind of followed Cardiff, and then once they went down to the championship, I didn't follow Cardiff ever again. I'd be like, maybe that was just one and done. So then they weren't in the Premier League anymore, and then I still followed Liverpool. Throughout the years. Then Mo Salah came around, and just was like, oh yeah, this team's good. But then it was around early 2019 when Norwich came back to the Premier League, and I was following Liverpool, but of course everyone was following Liverpool, and I'm like, I haven't really found a football club, So, September 15th, 2019, Norwich City are playing Manchester City at Carrow Road. And then this game was on TV in America on NBC Sports, Sports Network, which no longer exist now. It's now the USA Network. But I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to sit down. Norwich City are a newly promoted team. We'll just see how this goes. Obviously, I wasn't Norwich related. Okay, I'd be like, Man City will probably win this game.
Yeah,
we'll just see what
happens. You'll probably think to yourself, this lot don't have a chance.
Yes, but oh boy, this game changed my life forever because
God.
I'm Norwich City for life now. So just watching this game, sorry, I get excited talking about this, but just watching it, and then before the match, I could see Carrow Road. I just saw yellow and green flags. I'm like, wow, this is a really great atmosphere. And then I just saw that, injury, like Norwich had a lot of injuries at the time.
Yeah.
And then the first goal that happened in the 17th minute, Kenny McLean scores off the corner. Kenny McLean scored off the corner kick. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Norwich City just scored. This is amazing. So then all of a sudden they started hugging each other, and it was like, oh wow, this is a good moment. So then it was the 17th minutes, 1-0 Norwich. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. And then the game just started going on. And then it was like the 25th minute when Sergio Aguero just headed over Tim Krul's head. And I'm like, oh, man, that almost tied it. And then 2 minutes later, Timu Pukki starts dribbling down the line. Todd Cantwell is right next to him. They're onside. He plays it across. Todd Cantwell scores, makes it 2-0 Norwich. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, I just started getting so happy after that. And then all of a sudden, Todd Cantwell starts doing his surfing. And then it was 2-0 Norwich, and they were like, oh, this is extraordinary. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And then so Todd Cantwell scored, and then that assist from Timu Pukki was awesome.
Yeah.
And then Man City scored after that. I think it may have been 2-1 going into halftime.
2-1.
It's 2-1 going into half. Yeah, and then Buendia scored. Buendia gave the assist to Pukki, made it 3-1.
Mendy in the box, and oh god, and then Pukki.
Yes,
Sent John Stones and Edison to the floor.
That is right. And then
I'm guessing when you saw at halftime, Aguero just scored. Who, by the way, personal thing about me, Aguero is one of my favorite players of all time.
Sergio Aguero is a very good player. Yes,
absolutely. He was on another level when he was playing for City. But yeah, I'm guessing you were thinking to yourself, okay, were you thinking to yourself maybe the floodgates are going to open now, City will do something in the second half?
Yeah, I certainly would think that. I was like, oh, this may not last. But once Norwich scored the third goal and Timu Pukki, and the atmosphere was incredible. It's like, wow, this team just defeated the defending champions. And when Norwich won that game 3-2, and then obviously when Daniel Farke and Pep Guardiola had a moment at the end, I was like, and then they're like, one of the greatest performances in the history of the Premier League.
Exactly.
And I'm like, man, this was an insane game to watch. And I'm like,
fever dream.
This is amazing. And then the rest is history. I started following Norwich literally all throughout that. And then I would say sort of in 2019, like I knew some games that, had happened, but like, obviously I know the Tottenham game where obviously Timu Pukki was armpit hair offside. And then, that's VAR screwed Norwich up plenty of times that year against Arsenal and against Tottenham, especially against the big teams, probably would have gotten, those points. But then I would say like really in 2020, obviously when fans started that season, the 2019-20 campaign when obviously fans could come back. We lost the final 10 games of the season.
That's where it went
And
wrong.
that was the run, man. But then 2020 was when I really hit the stride in Norwich, because like 2019 was when it started. Then I sort of started following. It was like, oh, okay, Norwich this, Norwich that, but once we hit 2020, then that's when really started to pick up. Like, so I'd say probably after Christmas. After Christmas, I started like watching every single game, and then like sort of following it after the Man City game. But like 2020 was when I really hit my Norwich stride, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the story how it came about.
What a story that is as well.
For
Yeah,
sure.
that was where it went wrong, I think. Of course, there was not really much chance of staying up anyway because.
Yes, I would agree.
Money.
Yes, we did not. We just weren't. I mean, Norwich, I would say in the Premier League was just it was tough. I would say just we weren't scoring goals and just things were just not going well.
Conceding, and that's Championship life for it. And then of course football got suspended for over a year, and
yes, over a year.
Yeah. So just one thing that's just worth saying as well.
For sure.
Norwich spent what 25? We spent like 25 million that year in the Premier League.
Yes.
And we amassed, I think it was about 22 points. I think that's what it was, right?
Yes, in 2019-2020, we finished with 21 points.
21.
And the second Premier League campaign in 21-22, we got 22 points. And this is the same year when Daniel Farke got sacked and everything. It was an atrocity, Ranulph. Yeah. It was bad.
Yeah, and weirdos down the road, a certain blue and white team spent 130 million and finished with the same amount of points.
Yes.
That does say a lot.
Yes, Ipswich Town, man.
Prat.
Ipswich Town, man. I mean, I'm excited for next season. Obviously, we'll play Ipswich Town twice again, but
yep.
I want to keep the I want to keep the and obviously like 23-24. That was my first like season of the East Anglian Derby as a Norwich fan, because obviously I wasn't there yet, but obviously the East Anglian Derby like was fun. Beating them at Carrow Road, and then obviously Johnny Rowe with the 2 goals at Portman Road in December of 23. But yeah, but it's fun. It's good to have a rival game, and it's exciting.
Indeed, football rivalries, just derbies, rivalries in sports in general. They're not only just good to have because they sort of make communities sort of come against each other and makes competition, but it's also one other thing. It's good for the economy as well because
exactly
like they pubs could show that, and then they'll bring in more than they usually would, and it's just good for communities as well, and that's what the whole idea around football is. Yeah. So going on to sort of yammered a lot so far. No, not you. I don't mean you have. I love what you're saying to me.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, going on to what you wanted to mention. So, Johannes Torp.
Yes, Johannes Torp was sacked.
Oh my god. Yeah. Tell you what. You know what? I'm gonna send this to you now. I don't know if you have this, but it was a forfeit I had to do for my friend on this podcast, because we have predictions, and whoever gets the least of those right has to do a certain forfeit. So going into that, I had to do a love song for Torp.
Okay.
I had to do it to someone you love, Lewis Capaldi. Yeah. I don't know if you have TikTok. Do you have TikTok?
I do not.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'll send it to you on here. But yeah, talking about him getting sacked. Now, it was not something that I was expecting in the very least at all.
Absolutely not.
And was this so? But to be honest, the signs were there. I was at that Portsmouth game. That was absolutely horrendous. By the way,
absolutely not. We let Colby Bishop score a hat trick at Carrow Road for Portsmouth.
Colby Bishop. I rate him.
Sure, I would. He is a good, solid championship player. I would agree, but Portsmouth scoring 5 at Carrow Road, and then Millwall on. I mean, literally, what a terrible Easter weekend. We got skunked on Good Friday, and then Easter Monday was losing to Millwall, man.
Mate, I had to listen to Daniel yammering about that for an entire week. How do you think I feel? But yeah, of course, then Jack Wilshere came in on interim, and I'm guessing. Can I ask did you ever watch Arsenal, and did you ever see Jack Wilshere during his playing days there?
So as a child, I did watch Arsenal games occasionally. Like, obviously, Jack Wilshere growing up, playing with Theo Walcott and, all those guys. But yeah, I did watch Jack Wilshere a few times as well. And also, one thing I did wanted to say is that when I was a child, like, I knew Norwich City were, we're a football club. Like, when I was around 5th grade and like 4th grade, Norwich City were in the Premier League. And, there were one of the players that I did watch quite a bit as a child was Anthony Pilkington. I thought he was a really good player. So, but like as a child, I didn't think that, this team would be my club in 10 years. But, Anthony Pilkington was one of them. I also remember a guy named Steve Morrison. Steve Morrison was one, and there was a guy named Ryan Bennett, who's another guy I remember.
Alex Tete.
Yes, Alex Tete. Obviously, I didn't see his goal against Sunderland live, but that wicked screamer that he had against Sunderland when Carrow Road was ringing those bells that one day at Carrow Road, pretty exciting. But that's
going back to Torup. Can I ask? The signs were there, and I think it was a bit ridiculous because Ben Napper made us believe that this was going to be a really long-term project and things would eventually turn out for the best. And then to sack him and Glenn Riddersholm after less than 12 months, like it's a bit fraudulent, really. It's a bit of a lie, really. Yeah. So do you think letting him go was the right decision?
Now that you say that, and now that we're thinking about this out loud, I don't think so, because at the end of the day, Johannes Thorup had – okay, so listen. This season, we had to deal with Borja Sainz, the 6-game suspension for spitting on a Sunderland player. We had to deal – how many run-ins did we have with the Football Association? Kenny McLean being suspended, okay? Then we had the injury to Josh Sargent, which kept him out from November into January. We had injuries, and by the way, we saw Hofball throughout the week, beating Watford 4-1 at Carrow Road, beating Plymouth and beating Luton. The performances were there. It's just, I don't think it was the right call, to be honest. I think that we should have gotten through this season. We should have gotten through the summer. It's, Jack Reeve and Chris Reeve have talked about this on Talk Norwich City. Get through the summer, and then we'll see what it's like come August, and then we'll see how this kind of works, But to let him go, with only a few games to go, you're right. It didn't seem accurate. It didn't seem right. So if you ask me, I don't think it was the right call. But there are arguments that, some of his tactics and some of his substitution decisions were not working, But I mean, I thought Johannes Thorup was a nice, genuine guy. I mean, and I saw you on Instagram. Like you met him that one time.
Sick bloke. Yeah, when I met him as well. And but yeah, it's just, and I'm willing to bet that next season he's gonna have a job in the Championship. I really do think he will. And
Queens Park Rangers. Queens Park Rangers.
Could be QPR. He has been linked with Plymouth as well. That would mean dropping down a league. But
yes, for sure.
Yeah. So at the moment, we are currently linked with Bristol City top jobber Liam Manning. Apparently, we have paid the compensation fee of £800,000, and we're just waiting on the unveiling. And I don't know when that's going to be. But then again, with Norwich, we always delay things.
Exactly. Yes, we definitely do.
Yeah,
it's taken a while.
What sort of name anyone else? What sort of direction do you think Manning would take us in? And if there's any other candidates that you'd like to be considered, then go on. Who are they?
Okay, so obviously, Liam Manning got Bristol City into the top 6. Obviously, I mean, Liam Manning seems like, a nice guy that can, genuinely lead a football team in the right direction. I would say so. Because, I mean, Bristol City, he got, players like George Earthy, Max O'Leary, Max Bird. Those guys, they definitely hit their stride, I would say, under Liam Manning. But if there's one other guy that I would want to see in the run-in for the new Norwich City manager, it would be Gary O'Neill.
Hey.
And obviously, Pep Linders, I know that he was in the running as well because, but I don't really know much about Pep Linders, but I know Gary O'Neill, he managed Wolverhampton Wanderers, had some stride in the Premier League, but obviously got sacked because Wolves were kind of in that little sour patch, like towards Christmas time. But I would say Liam Manning would and by the way, Norwich, Liam Manning is from Norwich. He was a season ticket holder as a child. So I think Liam Manning could possibly lead us in the right direction, along with Gary O'Neill. He would be my number 2.
Yeah.
I would say if Manning doesn't work out or vice versa. But I would want it to see I would want it to be like one of them two. And obviously, we don't know necessarily if it's not either of those guys. Another guy could come in and lead us to the promised land. Who knows? But I would say as of right now, Manning and Gary O'Neill, I would say. Yeah. But I think I think both could lead us in a positive direction.
Indeed. I was at one of the games that did actually eventually probably lead to Gary O'Neill's getting the sack from Wolves.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was West Ham against Wolves. It was a Monday night, so it was very awkward. I've sort of got West Ham on the side because my stepdad, and that was very fun experience, despite the fact we got in with literally 2 minutes before kickoff and yada because we got a burger and then had to go. But anyway, so West Ham won 2-1 that night, and Wolves honestly just hardly touched the ball that night, and it was just evident from basically minute 1, even though West Ham should have probably scored in the first half. Should have scored, because they're all over them, and then Thomas Tuchel scored, and then Mohamed Kudus had 2 goals disallowed in that game, which is absolutely horrible. And then Matt Doherty equalised, but then then Jared Bowen scored 2 minutes later, and then Mario Lemina lost his head after Bowen went over to shake his hand. He pulled him to the ground, and it was just really ugly scenes. And those sorts of things were followed up.
Yes, I know what game you're talking about now.
Yeah, and then those sorts of things were followed up when they played Ipswich that weekend. They lost 2-1 again. Jack Taylor scored that last-minute winner for them. And then the same sort of thing happened. That eventually led to him being sacked. So it's sort of things like that just a loss of rationality within the club. I don't think that
for sure.
I don't think O'Neill was particularly. I think Wolves had eventually just driven him to lose the plot eventually. And
I think so.
Losing, especially considering how poor Wolves were under Julian Lopetegui when they had him, and then to be dominated in that way by their former coach when he managed West Ham, and he was pretty poor for them as well.
Yes, of course.
So, but I think that he would be very well suited to the Championship, and I think he could do a very good job with any Championship club, really.
I agree. And going back to and obviously one concern that I will say is that one name that typically goes back is Dean Smith. Now Dean Smith was in charge with I know it's a painful name. But, Dean Smith was in charge of us for a year, came in after Daniel Farco was sacked, and basically was in charge with us for about, he was with us from November of 2021 to December 2022. And, the success that Dean Smith had at Aston Villa, he kept, he had success with Aston Villa, but when he came to Norwich, man, it was bad. We got relegated. Yeah, we got relegated from the Premier League, and I was hoping that, and genuinely, I in 2022, 2023, I thought Norwich would win the league. I thought we would dominate the league and just go straight back up, just like we normally do. But that was not the case. Dean's like, we lost so many games, and then David Wagner came in. Oh,
Broke
23.
the yo-yo. Yeah.
He broke the yo-yo. Yes. Yes. That was just bad, man.
You know, I think it was at the game before he was, I think it was after that he got the sack. It was a 2-0 loss at home to Blackburn, and that was just...
I remember that game.
Yeah, that was horrific. The atmosphere
It was
that
horrific.
day was horrendous. And, you know, the thing about Dean Smith, he only ever cared about Aston Villa. It's a well-known fact. It's a public fact that he's a Villa fan. And can I ask, do you know which MLS club he's at right now?
He's at Charlotte.
He's at Charlotte. See,
Charlotte FC.
See, you know, I mean this was no offence, but when you go from being a Premier League manager to managing in the MLS, it's a downgrade, and it shows where you are, because I don't mean this as offence to any MLS fan,
no worries.
But the level of football is just, it's completely different. It's on a championship level, if not below. I think a lot of championship teams would win the MLS easily. So
yes, really, and you know, I talk about this a lot with, you know, my friends, my family occasionally, is that, you know, because like I'm from St. Louis, and so like I follow St. Louis City SC, and you know, we've got season tickets, which is amazing. Like sometimes when I'm at St. Louis City SC in my hometown, just to be like, oh, this is my new Norwich City, you know, I can imagine people like Carroll Road, you know.
Imagine if we play a friendly.
Yes. Wait, sorry, what was that?
Imagine if we play a friendly against St. Louis.
That would be awesome. And Aston Villa is actually coming to St. Louis to play St. Louis CSC in July. So that'll be a fun matchup to go to. But yeah, I totally agree with that, Ranulph, because sometimes when we're watching MLS or when I'm watching St. Louis City SC, like some of the stuff that MLS, you know, like, don't get me wrong, MLS is a great league. They got great players. But, like, when you compare it to English football, it is way different. The style is totally different. It's like, oh, in the Premier League, that's a goal. Or it's like, oh, anybody in the championship, you'd be like, oh, Tama Pukki would knock that in or something like that. And it's like, sometimes it could be, like, over the bar. And, you know, just be like, oh, my God, you put it past the post or something like that. And the pace is much faster. It's so much faster. Just be like, the Prem, it's like it's just constant back and forth. And sometimes MLS can be just like a little slower. It's like, you know, oh, now we're pressing, so now we're gonna lay off on the attack. We're just gonna kind of wait for the ball to come to us a little bit after that. But yeah, MLS is. I still love MLS. It's a great league. But yeah, I agree with that. English football is faster for sure.
Well, I guess the just like American sports in general has to be quite fast paced. You know, NFL matches last for about 3 hours each, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. NFL games can last a long time. A big diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And, you know, some of those games on Sundays last minimum 3 hours, and they can literally last up to 3.5, literally.
Yeah, I watched a bit. It was on Christmas Day. I think the Chiefs were playing. It was on Netflix.
The Chiefs were playing the Steelers. Yes, I was actually in this basement, and it was live on Netflix. And it was live on Netflix on a Wednesday, which that is just insane because everything's about money now and streaming. It's like, oh, we're gonna have 2 football games on a Wednesday. Oh. But I remember just watching it with my dad, and you know, it was a troubling game, but just, you know, watching football on Christmas, it's a little different, but it was fun. But yeah, the Chiefs, they're a very good team. Very good.
I mean, even though they did, of course, they would have been very disappointed to lose the Super Bowl, but
the Eagles crushed them.
Oh God.
That was fun to watch.
Daniel was very unhappy about that.
Yeah. So Daniel is a Chiefs fan.
He's a Chiefs fan, but he's also a Millwall fan as well.
Oh, he's a Oh, nice. You know, I do love the championship quite a bit. The EFL championship is a league that, you know, definitely I've been getting into. Like, obviously, when Norwich got relegated in 2020, that and you know, this season in the championship was like my first season of watching the championship. So I got to know teams like, you know, Preston North End, Millwall, and, you know, Stoke City. Well, Stoke, obviously, I knew from my childhood because they were a really solid Prem club. But, you know, Rotherham United was in the Prem that year, and Wycombe in the championship, and then Wycombe Wanderers was there that year. So it's like all these teams, I'm like getting to know more of England. But yeah, now it's just we're in Norwich are just in a little bit of a rut right now.
Wycombe Wanderers. I can Fenwa. Come on. So yeah,
Yeah.
going on to big bit of speaking of Norwich, big bit of transfer news that has come out.
Yes,
Jacob
let's get
Wright,
into the
come
transfer news.
on!
Yes, I am very excited about Jacob Wright. I am really excited that he's decided to, commit his future to Norwich City. I mean, what this really shows is that he liked his loan spell. He liked those few months that he was here because he's probably thinking that if he goes back to Man City, everyone is so great at Man City, and maybe not as good as he is. But if he stays in Norwich, he's going to get so much playing time.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
will use Jacob Wright, and he is a solid, great player, great chap. Love him.
And of course, thing with Man City is he probably wants to play in a full stadium in Norfolk than he'd probably rather play in big empty stadium in Manchester. Okay,
For sure.
I'm not talking about. Okay, I'm not trying to banter City because I did follow them when I was younger, which was completely because of Aguero.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, the thing with City is, of course, Rodri is coming back from injury, and
Yes.
I did hear people saying that Wright deserves playtime over players like Gundogan. Of course, Ilkay Gundogan he's in a league of his own. He's been doing it for years, and he's outrageous player. But he's getting on. It does have to be said, and as is Kevin De Bruyne, who of course is leaving this summer,
Yes.
which does leave a massive gap to fill in their midfield.
Of course.
But yeah, I think that Pep Guardiola is going to regret. I really hope. I think we're going to make him regret letting go of him just as much as he probably did with, I think he's been made to miss a lot of players. Cole Palmer, for example, you could even say maybe Liam Delap.
Exactly.
This goes on.
Yes, I totally agree. And the thing about Jacob Wright is, he's signed through 2029. So obviously he's going to be here at least 3 years. He's going to be here at least 3 years, I would believe. And, Man City, I just don't think that he would get as much playing time. But I mean, when it comes to Callum Doyle, now obviously we weren't able to keep him, but hey, I give Callum Doyle so much respect and all the credit. He was a great chap for us in the back. Like I thought he was a brilliant loan spell. He had a really awesome goal against. Did he score against Watford or was it against Hull?
It was inside 3 minutes against Watford. It was from outside the box.
That's right. It was right away. It was right away, and then he did have some good assists, but he had great ratings like throughout all his matches that he played, and I just loved his energy at the Lotus training facility, like some of the footage that I saw, and some of his interviews were great as well. But I wish him all the best at Man City, and going back to Jacob Wright. Now I will ask you this: who's a player that was on loan at Norwich City, went back to his club, then went on loan to another club, and now he's not on a team at all? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Not on a team at all. He went on loan to Norwich.
Yes.
Went back, went on loan again, and now he doesn't have a club. Give me a second to think about this. Is it?
Sure.
How recent?
Oh,
I know you're thinking about. I know you're thinking of Brandon Williams.
Brandon Williams.
Well, he could have potentially have a club. He could have potentially have a team actually, if the jail he's in has like a team.
Oh my gosh, dude, I feel so bad. I mean, Brandon Williams. I mean, I really liked Brandon Williams when he was with us in the Premier League, but But remember, there's one thing that he did that you can't do. You remember what he did, right?
He snakes us. He went to bloody Portman Road, then became injury prone. Had a good couple of first months. Injury prone, and then he went 100 miles per hour in a 50 zone or something.
Yes, right. But remember, there's one thing that I'm talking about. So in 2022, when we were at Leeds United, when we were at Ellen Road, Leeds United were winning 1-0. And then Kenny McLean equalized in literally the 91st minute of stoppage time. And then Leeds scored literally a minute and a half later, and Norwich lost the game 2-1. And remember, Brandon Williams did the middle finger at Norwich City FC on Instagram right after the game. Do you remember that?
Oh my god. Like,
Yes.
His attitude.
And he was. I remember there was one time. There was one game in the Premier League. I think it was Newcastle. I think we got beat 3-0. It was a car crash of a game, and I think Norwich City supporters followed him back to his home or something like that, and were just abusing him.
Like,
oh yes, yeah, that's right. All this, yeah, dude. The end of that season was bad, and then some of the footage that I do remember from that year was Stuart Webber and Zoe Webber were being harassed and abused by fans outside Norwich, and I just couldn't help but like look at that and just feel like, oh man,
this stuff goes on.
This stuff goes on. And Stuart Webber, I don't think Stuart Webber didn't really. I mean, I don't think he really was. I didn't really think he cared at all.
He's a prat,
to be honest.
Well, he built good stuff. He envisioned the training grounds, which are at a Premier League level.
For sure. Yeah, you're right. To credit his due.
If you're going to build foundations, you need to maintain them, and he didn't.
Yes, and he would say things like, "Oh, this team has the potential to get to the Premier League and keep it there." I'm like, "What? No, we don't."
What are you talking about? So what?
We don't have the potential to go to the Premier League. What was it like the first 2 years?
So what? A goal kick? So what? With having Michael McGovern in goal, or wait a minute, let me think. What else?
Yes, Michael McGovern.
Yeah, Matthias Norman. Buy him on a permanent. To be fair, he was good. But
Billy Gilmore.
An attitudious Milo Rashika who doesn't want to be there, and just as much for Crystal Solis as well, who didn't really adjust to Premier League very well. But now
Pierre Lees-Malou.
Yeah,
he was one as well.
God, that was a horror show. Yeah. And I was at the Brighton game in the FA Cup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course we started well. Like first 30 minutes, I thought, okay, we could
Yeah, I was gonna say the first 30 minutes were great.
Yeah, we were doing all right here, and then Jorginho came up and scored.
Yes.
And then they scored 3 more, and just think to myself, yeah, we're nowhere near that level. Brighton gave a good example. We know where they are, and we know where we are, and
for sure.
There.
It's definitely going to take time. And also, who came onto the field for Brighton that game, and now he's with us.
Rory McConville.
I'm excited for him, man. He and Jacob Wright, both 19 years old. And then, and also I remember DMing Rory McConville on Instagram, and I was talking. I was just kind of just DMing him, like, my thoughts, and just telling him about how I'm excited I am that he's a Canary, and he's just like, have a good summer, and he just talked about, we're gonna try and do everything we can to make Norwich a great club, and we're gonna try and get back to our winning ways. And we did talk about Josh Sargent a little bit, because Josh Sargent is apparently, he told me that his locker is like right next to him in the dressing room and stuff. But yeah, and it's good that Norwich players are kind of interacting with their supporters. That's just what I love, because here in St. Louis, the players interact with us as well. They'll sign autographs after the game. They won't just head straight back to the dressing room. That's what I love about the beautiful game.
It's good stuff. You've got DMs with Rory McConville. What are you waiting for? Add him to NCFCGC.
Oh yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay, yeah. And going on to another player, another transfer that I really think we should go all out for. We've talked about Jacob Wright. I need to ask you the big burning question: are we going to sign Lewis Dobbin?
Okay, I was thinking about this too. Now, so we have spent how much? Okay, how much have we spent? How much did we just spend on Jacob Wright on the permanent deal?
2.3 million. Rabbit out of
Okay, yeah, that's right. I knew it was around 2 mil. Okay, but I will say, if we do sign Lewis Dobbin to a permanent deal, that is hard, because is that gonna? I would like to say yes. because what we saw from Lewis Dobbin, amazing. He's a brilliant player. He was brilliant. His 2 goals I thought were good. He only made 11 appearances, but obviously he can't help injuries. But I would like to say yes. If we want to go out there and contend and be a top 6, we've got to do everything that we can.
Exactly.
You know, we've got to do everything we can. So I would say yes. Let's get Dobbin in there. And by the way, we're not keeping Doyle, so that saves money.
Yeah. Well, he has requested to move away from Man City, so he's probably going to end up maybe at another Championship or maybe even another Premier League club, maybe like Brentford or who else? Maybe Wolves. But,
okay, so Callum Doyle will likely not stay at Man City, you think?
Nah.
Okay.
But yeah, going back onto Dobbin, I think, to be fair, Villa could probably demand a decent fee for him. Not really sure about how much. I'd say
sure.
Let's start maybe about 7 million. How does that sound? Maybe plus a bit of add-ons.
Yeah, I would say so.
You know, but one other thing we need to be talking about,
outgoings.
So, Athletic Club they are sniffing around Borja signs.
Yes, I did watch Jack Reed's video on that last night, so that is in the talks.
Right. There are things that probably would entice him to play there. He probably, for one, he probably wants to play in La Liga again.
Yes, he is, and he grew up playing with Athletic, right?
He did come through their academy.
Yeah, as a child. Came up through their academy, yes.
And second thing, of course, you know, it's in his home country. It's in Spain, which
of course
I can imagine. I mean, who wouldn't want to be closer to home anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if this is gonna happen, we need to be ready to. I felt like when Max Aaron's left, we got 7 million plus a couple of add-ons for him.
Yes.
From Bournemouth, where he never plays, and now he's gone on loan to Valencia, where he's
only made 5 appearances.
Yeah. He's doing wonders at Valencia now. So yeah, but yeah, and then later, I felt like we didn't get enough of Jonathan Rowe either. Of course, in the circumstances that he did leave. Then that can be argued, and the fact that
was painful.
That was bad. That was really bad. Honestly, checking the lineup, thinking to myself, "Where's Johnny?" That was PTSD that day, and then we lost.
We would not have lost that game if Rowe was playing.
Exactly.
I guarantee that we would not have lost that game. Rowe would have scored one of those goals against Oxford United at the Kassam Stadium.
Come on, it's Oxford, and.
We didn't beat them once.
Exactly. But now we've got 14 million. We've got 14 million from Marseille last summer, and then we've got an extra 16 million from them. So honestly, that is fantastic. But I prefer him over that money. Like, I know that sounds really, really stupid.
Yes.
It probably does sound dumb, because you know that's nearly 30 million for a club like Norwich. There are things we could reinvest that fantastically, but honestly, watching Jonathan Rowe play was just absolutely. It was remarkable. I saw his goals. He scored against Millwall early on in the season, and then I saw his goal against West Brom, which was really, really, really well worked.
Or against Hull, opening day of the season in 2023. That was good.
Holloway.
2 goals.
Yeah, no hope. They just.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, the outside of his foot.
Yeah, and they just signed Fabio Carvalho. Fabrizio Romano confirmed it, and I was just thinking to myself, earlier on in that week, we are so screwed. And then, God, that happened.
That's right.
Yeah, God.
And then the one thing I do remember about that is because right before the game against Hull City, in January 2024, I remember watching a podcast that Jack and Chris Reeve had just did on Talk Norwich City, and then right as that podcast ended, the one thing I remember about that game was when Chris Reeve said, "We're gonna get mauled by the Tigers," and I'm like, Chris, you're probably right. And then when Jonathan Rowe scored that goal on the outside of his right foot, I'm like, glorious. And we ended up winning that game 2-1. And then the rest of the season was just, we started to hit our stride and we got in the top 6. So that but and also going back to Jonathan Rowe, is he on loan right? He wasn't sold to Marseille. We got him on loan, right?
He was on loan to Marseille, and they've had to trigger his buy clause. But from what I can tell, Roberto De Zerbi, probably botched that. De Zerbi doesn't really want him. He missed an important penalty to get them knocked out. I think it was the French Cup, or the Coupe de France. But yeah, he missed an important penalty there, and he started off okay, and he did get a couple more goals, but they won't love him like the way we did, and
Right.
you could say he did stab us in the back there, but
Sure, it
I
did.
was ready to forgive him.
Yeah, and then so we might get Johnny Rowe back, or you think we'll just sell him and take the money?
He's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine after what Rowe did last year against Oxford, like going to Johannes Hofdorp and saying like, "Hey, I want to move away. I don't want to be in this squad." I'm like, okay, well, first of all, Rowe, at the end of the day, you're on contract with Norwich City Football Club. You haven't been moved away, and we have a match, like deciding the morning of the game. That's what you go into Hofthorpe's office, and that's what you like. That's just not what you do. That's just so unprofessional. So unprofessional. And you let him down. And also, Sargent was playing up top that day, and he would have been with Sargent, and obviously Ida played one game right before he got that move to Celtic. And Adam Ida too, he was kind of being not so professional too, because he was all like, I want that move to Celtic. I want that move to Celtic. And he wasn't participating in Norwich activities.
Well, to be fair, I think with Azamida, the thing about him is just the fans hated him, and that was very clear.
Yeah, I would agree.
Probably
he got a lot of abuse.
I did not like him. Of course, he did. I did see him embarrass himself a couple of times. Of course, that Bristol Rovers FA Cup game was particularly bad. And then he bagged a penalty in the replay. But yeah, it was he was so, honestly, him coming off the bench, he could just turn into prime Ronaldinho. And then he, of course, the win against Bristol City, of course, 95th minute winner, and then the win against Hull on the opening day. And
correct.
Yeah, I think he's one we miss as well, and I just think we should have treated him better. I completely understand why he wanted to go, and I think he's much happier at Celtic. Of course, I've heard Celtic fans say what they have said. Some have said sort of similar things, but he's getting goals in there, he's scoring, and I just think he deserves to be somewhere where he's more appreciated.
Yeah, and Adam Ida did score. He did score some good goals for us. Like the one goal that I remember the most was in the Premier League against Everton.
Oh my god! Yeah,
and we ended up winning that game, and that was at Carrow Road, and that was, I just remember, in 2021 we didn't score a single goal from early December all the way to mid-January. We did not score a goal at all in the festive fixtures, man. Mental. It was, mental. God. But Adam Ida, obviously, and Johnny Rowe. So I think we'll sell Rowe. We'll get the money for him, and and then think of some other outgoings. I mean, obviously, we got Marcelino Nunes, which I don't know about him. There hasn't been any rumors recently about Marcelino Nunes. He's still with us. And there hasn't been any on my favorite Norwich City player, the guy that's from my hometown, Josh Sargent.
Oh, yeah, St. Louis. He is from St. Louis, isn't he?
Yes, he is. So, so he went to St. Dominic High School here in St. Louis. And funny story, actually. Yeah, so one of my friends from St. Louis, he actually had played club with Josh Sargent at Gallagher. And also, last summer at Energizer Park, which is where St. Louis City play their games, we were I think St. Louis City SC was playing like LAFC and MLS, and Josh Sargent was sitting in the booth. And Josh Sargent is on the Jumbotron. Josh Sargent is like on the big Jumbotron screens, and he's waving to the city of St. Louis, and all my family was like around me, and they're all looking at me. They're like, "That's your guy right there."
Hey,
Only I saw Josh. If only like I could just, if I could teleport myself to where I was sitting in the stadium up to his booth, that would have been just amazing. But yeah.
Also, this is one thing. Speaking of Sargent,
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of USMNT, and of course, there was it did spike a bit over here when Mauricio Pochettino took the job, which of course did
for sure
did an underrated job at Chelsea, which I think went underappreciated.
Yeah, I think Pochettino is a good manager.
Yeah, but the thing about Sargent is he's on another level for us, but when he puts on in America, when he puts on a USA shirt, he's fairly mediocre. I'm sorry, it has to be said. But
No. I agree with you. Yeah, because I mean there have been times like obviously when like there were times against Canada and Panama this back in I think it was March. It was not the World Cup qualifiers. I forget what. Not the Copa.
I think it was like Nations League semi-finals.
Yes, the Nations League. The Nations League. Now, I could just see like when Sargent gets it, I just think that he just kind of, I just feel like he's not mentally like there. But and also the game against Panama, Josh Sargent did score a goal, but Timothy Weah was offside. So obviously, that obviously didn't work out. But I just sometimes, to some degree, that is the truth a little bit. But I mean, sometimes the United States right now, like the United States men's national team right now as a whole is just they're in a rut. Like player wise, obviously like Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie and Weah, I don't think they're going to be available for the Gold Cup. That's one of the things. I know that Christian Pulisic was out of the Gold Cup squad, is what I did read. But yeah, it's just they're just in a tough place. And Josh Sargent wasn't called up for the squad for the Gold Cup. So I mean, obviously the World Cup's going to be here next summer in 2026.
Yeah.
And, Josh Sargent, if Josh Sargent wants to play there, then I don't know if he's just going to have to go to a bigger club, but there's a lot of MLS players that are getting the call up over him, especially with Haji Wright, who plays for Coventry as well. He wasn't called up either. So it's mostly mostly
underappreciated stuff. I did watch a bit of that Panama game because I was just thinking to myself, Josh Sargent and Jose Cordoba are playing against each other.
Exactly, Jose Cordoba. Yes.
Please don't injure one or another. God.
Yes, that was.
But Cordoba unit, by the way, it has to be said.
Yeah, Jose Cordoba. I thought Jose Cordoba was really good with the Panama squad. Like I was like some of the stuff that he was doing on Panama. I was like, whoa, let's see that at Norwich. Like, let's see some of those clearances at Norwich. But I think Cordoba, he's definitely got a lot to learn. I would say he's got a lot to learn. He's still young. He's going to develop. I mean, I think same with like Forson and Manqua and all those guys.
Yeah. But going on to the thing about the USA national team, they really got to sharpen up because as you have said, you're hosting the bloody World Cup next year. Which, by the way, I'm going to be doing 1:00 in the morning watch-alongs, but my GCSE exams will be all done, so I'll probably just be me and my friends every night at 1:00.
Yeah.
But USA really need to sharpen up because if you don't, then you're set for probably a group stage exit, which that is just. For a host nation, of course, there is Canada
cannot happen.
And Mexico as well. But that's embarrassing. That would be utterly embarrassing, and it would just it would hurt the MLS. I think it would make players disinterested in coming to play in the US, and I think it would just hurt the footballing pride of the nation as well.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, they really have got to sharpen up. They got to get the squad ready. They got to pick the right players. They got to train as hard as they can because Canada's going to be there, Mexico's going to be there. It's 48 teams in this World Cup. It is massive, and I think Japan's already qualified. Japan's qualified, so there's 4 nations now. So there's still like 44 to go.
England have still got a tiny bit of work. Still got a fair bit of work to do. Still plenty of qualifiers to go there.
Yes.
But yeah, can England do it? Oh god.
Yes. Yeah.
I
England.
don't want to think about that now because Harry Kane's broken his trophy curse, and so is Tottenham. Can England?
Yes, for sure.
And you know what? It would just be the most satisfying thing. World Cup final. USA 0, England 1. It's called football.
Anything is possible nowadays, but I know England, I do root for the England national team here and there. Like England, when they're in the Euros, like I root for the England national team, like, a lot as well. I follow them, and of course United States. But I like watching England too. Obviously with Thomas Tuchel, he's now the manager, and, what are your thoughts on him?
It's mixed, really. Of course, let's say England don't come up against the USA in the World Cup, and they come up against Germany in the World Cup. I'm not really sure how motivated Tuchel will be for that, but seriously, I think Chelsea, who is my brother's club, they made a big mistake in sacking him in the first place. Of course, then they got Potter in, and then I think it was Potter. Then Lampard came back, and that was bad. And yeah, it's weird, but I think Tuchel will do. I think I can see him doing great things for England. Of course, I did watch a bit. I think it was the I can't remember who it was. It was either Serbia or who we did play in the World Cup. No, it wasn't the World Cup. It was the Euros. But yeah, of course, they were moving the ball in a very simple way that did remind me of Gareth Southgate quite a bit. But then Harry Kane got the ball in the box, and the touch was absolutely ridiculous. And if he gets the ball in that position, 10 times out of 10 he's going to score. And he did, just like that. So
100%.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Now I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
What do you think of Mauricio Pochettino?
I like what he has to offer, obviously, but obviously in the Nations League, it just seemed like excuses, to be honest. It's like, we weren't kind of ready, but it's like, you got to get these guys going. And I know a lot of people say, like, Pochettino, he's not the one out there playing, it's the players. But it's like, at the end of the day, head coaches, you got to get these guys ready. Just in the dressing room, you've got to get those guys ready. You got to have some kind of mentality to get, at halftime, maybe change up a tactic that maybe didn't work. But I like what Pochettino has to offer. I know, he's in the early stages of coaching the United States, but just at the end of the day, I like what he has to offer. I think he's a nice guy. Some people in America, I think that it might have been a good appointment. I think it was a good appointment, but just we need to see United States win, though, because right now the United States are not winning, and they've got to start winning matches, to get prepared for this World Cup. It's going to be massive. But I still have faith. I haven't lost any faith. That's basically the main point.
Faith is all we can have, indeed.
Yes, exactly. For sure.
So I'm just gonna go over some predictions now. This is for Daniel particularly.
Okay.
Let's see how cooked I am, and if it's all right with you, I'm just gonna ask you to do a prediction at the end.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Right. So getting into the playoff predictions. So for League 2, Daniel and I both predicted Walsall were going to win.
Yeah.
Wimbledon won. and the biggest bottle job in football history was completed. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Because Wimbledon used to be okay. So I'll tell you, like, I don't really know much about League One and League Two, but Wimbledon, I know, were in the Premier League. Like, they used to be in the Prem, right?
Yep, they did
Okay,
before.
so but yeah, they're going up. They're going up to League One.
Yeah. But yeah, can I just say something as well?
Go ahead.
The fact that MK Dons came along, which was when they got franchised, the whole idea of moving Wimbledon about 100 miles to Milton Keynes, the idea of franchising may work in America, but it just doesn't work over here. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's a bad idea.
For sure.
The idea of moving them to blooming Ireland as well. Ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy for Wimbledon.
For sure, yeah. And then obviously, yeah, go ahead.
Going into League One,
Yes.
Daniel predicted Charlton to win. I predicted Stockport to win. Yeah, Charlton won, so that is 1-0 Daniel. I am currently behind. For the championship, this was, by the way, when they were still trailing. I predicted Coventry to do it. Oh my god. And then I saw Dan Barlard's winner. That was a nightmare. Daniel predicted Sunderland. Sunderland did win. So
yes,
yeah, Daniel does win that as well. So
yes.
it's 2-0.
And then you know what? I had Bristol City upsetting Sheffield United. Didn't score one goal.
Oh man. Oh. You didn't put a bet on that, did you?
Oh no. I did not put a bet on that. I would have lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
I would have lost a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the Europa League. God, I'm doing terribly. Daniel predicted Tottenham to win. I predicted Man United to win. Tottenham did win, by the way. United are in the mud now. It really does have to be said. So yeah, I've lost. So I'm currently 3-0. I'm 4-0 down to Daniel. And the only one I got right was the FA Cup. I predicted Palace to win. Daniel predicted Man City to win. Of course, you know he doesn't like Palace. He's a Millwall fan. And so yeah, it's 4-1. And we both predicted Chelsea to win the Conference League. So that's 5-2 to him. And now I just need to ask about a couple of your predictions. Let's start with. So, do you watch a lot of? Have you watched any non-league football at all? You can be brutally honest.
Like National League?
Yeah.
No, I have not, to be honest.
Well, tell you what. I'll just write this down. Special guest.
Okay.
So the National League playoff final, which, by the way, guys, I have to announce it here. I will be there. I'll be at Wembley on Sunday for Oldham Athletic versus Southend United. Brendan, as you are guest, Mr. Boone.
Yeah. Yes.
Who have you got going back to the Football League?
I'll say Oldham.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
For me, this one is impossible to call. Oh my god, this is absolutely. I don't know how I'm gonna predict this, but you know what? I am sat in the Oldham end. I'm sat with the Oldham fans. I'm gonna go with Southend. Ugh.
All right. Okay. Gotcha.
And for the last one of the night, I'll add you to this one. The Champions League, Inter Milan versus Paris Saint-Germain. So Daniel and I have both predicted PSG to win this. Who have you got?
I have Inter Milan winning.
Ooh, okay.
And the upset. And I say 2-1 Inter Milan.
Who's going to score? Who's like...
Ooh, that's a tough one. Man, I have no idea, actually. I have no idea.
It's all right.
I have no idea who's going to score. Hold on one second. Who's that one player in Inter Milan who's the one that scored? Who's their top forward? Inter Milan. He scored against Barcelona.
I should know this.
I can't think of his name.
I should know this, to be fair. Hang on, I'm looking it up now. Top scorer for this season is currently, they've got 24-20. Should be 24-25.
Yeah, hold on. Inter.
At the moment, it's Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram.
Okay.
Well,
yes, I'll say
Dumfries. Denzel Dumfries, isn't it? He scored
Yes,
against Barca.
yes. I'll say Denzel Dumfries scores.
Is a
Yes,
unit. And it would be nice. I think it would be nice to see PSG win, just specifically for Luis Enrique, because he's been through a lot, and
for sure.
to bring that trophy back for him, it would be beautiful.
Yes.
So that is effectively all that we've got time for tonight. Thank you very much for tuning
All right.
in tonight.
Thank you so much,
Brendan. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ranulph.
So
I really appreciate this.
Please make sure to like and subscribe to help grow the channel, and I'll see you all on Sunday. Effectively.
All right.
All right. Cheers.
On the Ball City.
On
See
the
everybody.
Ball City. Take care.
On the
people.
Ball City.